In 2008, the first Marvel movie, Iron Man 1, was released, which completely turned around this nearly bankrupt Marvel. The line, "I'm Iron Man," kicked off the glorious chapters that followed in Marvel. So today, let's review this legendary film that saved Marvel once again. Tony Stark, the son of Howard Stark, a legendary weapon developer, showed his extraordinary talent since childhood. He built his first circuit board at the age of 4, his own V8 engine at the age of 6, and graduated from MIT with excellent grades at the age of 17. After his father's death, Tony took over Stark Industries and developed it into the world's top weapon developer. Seemingly glamorous on the surface, he was actually a playboy, eating, drinking, and having fun all day long, and the women beside him were different every day when he woke up. Fortunately, he also had a considerate assistant, Pepper, to help him deal with these matters. On this day, he was supposed to take a plane to Afghanistan, but he was still tinkering with his car at home. By the time he drove to the airport, he was already 3 hours late. After the plane arrived in Afghanistan, Tony showed the latest super, weapon developed by him, to the local army. This demonstration made the military very satisfied. Just as they were on their way back, they were suddenly attacked by terrorists. All the accompanying soldiers were killed, and only Tony quickly fled to a huge rock. Just as he was about to call for help, a missile produced by his own company fell beside him. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a pitch dark cave, and there was a strange device on his chest, which was done by this man in front of him. He used an electromagnet to attract the shrapnel in Tony's body, thus saving his life. His name was Ethan. Like Tony, he was also a kidnapped scientist. At this time, a group of terrorists walked in from outside the door. They handed over a blueprint, hoping that Tony could help them build missiles. Tony refused on the spot and was then abused by them. In order to save his life, Tony had to pretend to agree on the surface, but he already had an escape plan in his mind. His first step was to extract the palladium element from all the missiles and make a small scale reactor by himself to replace the magnet on his chest. Then he was going to build an indestructible Iron Man suit. In the following few days, the two had completed some parts of the suit. When Tony was debugging these parts, the terrorists also noticed something strange. They rushed in and questioned Tony why he was fooling them. Dr. Ethan explained that these were the parts of the missiles, but of course the other side didn't believe it and was about to kill Dr. Ethan. Tony quickly stepped in to stop them, saying that if he died, he himself couldn't build the missiles either. Although the gang leader let Dr. Ethan go, he also gave a deadline. If they couldn't hand over the missiles tomorrow, they would all die. So Tony started to work overnight to catch up. After a whole night of forging, the Iron Man suit Mark I was finally completed. On the other side, the bald-headed leader didn't find their trace on the monitor, so he sent 2 younger brothers to check on their situation. But Tony was well prepared and placed a bomb on the door. The 2 younger brothers were blown away the moment they opened the door. Seeing this situation, the bald-headed leader ordered all his men to go out, but on Tony's side, it still took a process to start the suit. In order to buy time for Tony, Dr. Ethan picked up a gun and rushed out. Here we can see that Dr. Ethan with a gun didn't kill anyone, but fired randomly at other places. This was Dr. Ethan's kindness in his subconscious. He just wanted to intimidate the other side and wouldn't kill innocent people randomly like these terrorists. It was this kindness that made Tony become Iron Man, a peacekeeper later. On the other side, the program of the suit was finally loaded, and Iron Man's first suit, Mark I, emerged out of nowhere. Tony, wearing the suit, was invulnerable. Even the strongest fortifications were like pieces of paper in front of him. The terrorists fled in all directions when they saw this huge thing. But before he could be cool for long, Tony accidentally got his left arm stuck. This move also laid an important foreshadowing for his left arm injury later. Looking at Dr. Ethan, who died for him, Tony was extremely angry. He walked out of the cave. Countless bullets hit him but had no effect at all. Tony not only defeated all the terrorists, but also burned all the weapons. Then in a violent explosion, Tony flew away from here. But soon, due to fuel exhaustion, he fell heavily on the desert and the parts of the suit were scattered all over the place. Fortunately, his life was not in great danger. Finally, his good friend Rhodey also found him. After this experience, Tony realized that weapons not only failed to protect people, but also became the trigger for starting wars, which also violated his original intention of loving peace. So at the press conference, he made an astonishing decision that was to completely shut down the weapon projects of Stark Industries. As soon as this statement was made, it immediately attracted wide attention from all sectors of society. Obadiah, the major shareholder of the company and also Ironmonger, asked him if he was a fool. He told Tony to think carefully about his decision, but Tony said that he had made up his mind. After that, Tony made a new reactor and asked his assistant Pepper to help him replace it. Pepper asked what to do with the old reactor that was removed. Tony told her to just destroy it, but Pepper didn't do as he said. Instead, she kept it as a memento of Tony's new life. It was this very action that saved Tony's life later. Back in the studio, Tony devoted all his energy to the research and development of the new armor. There were also many accidents during the process. After countless tests, all parts of the armor finally functioned properly, and then the Mark II armor was assembled and introduced to the world. When everything was ready, the new armor took off officially. Excited, Tony soared into the sky, flying straight up, but when he reached 40,000 feet, the armor's shell began to freeze and the system malfunctioned. Just as he was falling from a high altitude, Tony activated the de-icing system and narrowly escaped danger. Tony also laughed like a 300-pound child, and the success of this armor's development was the happiest moment in his life. In the days that followed, layers of pressure would make it hard for him to breathe. After that, Tony made up for the material defects of the armor and redesigned the color of the armor. At the same time, the remains of Mark I, which Tony had abandoned in the desert, were discovered and taken back for study by the terrorists. One day, when Tony was attending a banquet, he got a piece of news from a journalist friend. Someone was actually making arms deals with terrorists in secret. Only then did Tony realize that there was a mole in the company. He immediately went to find Ironmonger, who simply confessed everything and said that he had done all this to protect Tony. Back at home, Tony watched the atrocities of the terrorists and could no longer suppress the anger in his heart, so he decided to put on the armor and uphold justice. When Tony put on the Iron Man armor, I believe no Marvel fan could suppress their inner excitement. On the other side, the terrorists in Afghanistan were still continuing their atrocities. However, Tony and his armor also descended from the sky and easily dealt with several thugs. Facing the thugs who were taking hostages, Tony also secretly aimed at the target. Most importantly, even the bearded man hiding behind the wall was dragged out by Tony and handed over to the refugees. But just as he was about to go home after completing the task, he was attacked by the remaining enemies. Then Tony fired a laser to destroy the enemy's weapons and officially headed home. When passing through military airspace, he was regarded as an unidentified flying object and was attacked by military fighter jets. It was only after Tony called Rhodey to explain the situation that he got home safely. That night, Ironmonger came to the terrorists' base. It turned out that he was the mastermind behind all this. It was he who had planned to kidnap Tony. This time he came because he had heard about these people and got a secret weapon, which was Tony's Mark I. The terrorist leader wanted to cooperate with Ironmonger and let him produce this kind of armor. However, at this time, the terrorists were no longer useful and were completely wiped out by Ironmonger. On the other side, Tony called Pepper and asked her to go to the company to help investigate the mole. When Pepper was copying the data, she also learned the whole truth. At this time, Ironmonger happened to come to the office. Pepper could only pretend to be calm and quietly pulled out the USB drive and left. Ironmonger also quickly opened the computer to check the situation and learned that the secret had been leaked. So he wanted to catch up with Pepper, but unexpectedly met Agent Coulson, which made him dare not do anything to Pepper. Why did Agent Coulson happen to show up? It was because Tony had casually promised to meet Coulson before, but broke the appointment. After learning that the secret had been leaked, Ironmonger quickly found the scientists and asked them to speed up the production of the reactor. The scientists also said that they had done their best and said aggrievedly that if they had Tony's intelligence, Stark Industries would not be called Stark Industries. Ironmonger thought that since he couldn't make it himself, he could only steal it, so he used black technology to paralyze Tony and took the reactor from his chest. At the moment of heart failure, it was still the old reactor that Pepper had kept that saved Tony's life. After getting the reactor, Ironmonger couldn't wait to install it into the modified Mark I. At the same time, Pepper also brought several SHIELD agents to arrest Ironmonger. As a result, as soon as they entered the laboratory, they were sent to their doom by Ironmonger in his armor. The escaped Pepper quickly called Tony for help. Just as Ironmonger was about to strike, Tony arrived in time. Tony knew that he was no match for this modified suit, so he planned to win by strategy. He lured Ironmonger to an altitude of tens of thousands of meters, and Ironmonger's suit froze due to material defects. However, Tony also had little energy left and staggered back to the ground. But to his surprise, Ironmonger didn't die even under such circumstances. Tony was almost crushed by Ironmonger, and he managed to break free from the restraint only by using a flare. Knowing that he was no match for the opponent, Tony decided to let Pepper go to the control room to turn on all the power sources. He planned to perish together with the other. Although Pepper was reluctant, it was the only way at present, so she pressed the button, and instantly powerful electricity shot straight into the sky. In the end, Ironmonger and his suit fell into the reactor and were blown to ashes. Tony on the side survived by luck. After that, at the press conference about this accident, others prepared a statement for him. He could be safe and sound just by reading it according to the script. But when he took the stage to speak, he said that eternal classic sentence in front of numerous media.
I am Iron Man.
This explosive news not only made all the journalists on the scene excited, but also attracted the attention of more mysterious organizations to him. When Tony got home, he found that Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., had been waiting for a long time. This also foreshadowed the establishment of the Avengers later.